Tēnā koutou katoa. We seek wisdom, understanding, insights into the views and circumstances of others, strength to seek what we believe in, humility to accept the combined decisions of others, patience, good humour at all times, tolerance and courtesy while working in the best interests of our community. First item on the agenda is apologies. I've received apologies from Kathy Casey, Alf Filipina and Councillor John Walker for absence, from Councillor Wayne Walker and John Watson for absence on council business, and from Councillor Penny Hulse for lateness on council business. So I move that those apologies be accepted. Do I have a seconder? Professor Collins. All those in favour, please say aye. 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 To the contrary, no. Carried. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a potential interest that they need to declare in terms of the agenda items today?
Ross.
Councillor Clow.
Yeah, my wife is a casual librarian, so I declare an interest on the petition 5.1.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Confirmation of minutes. We have the minutes of the 23rd of March 2017. I move that those minutes be confirmed. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Greg Sayers. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. We come now to petitions, and we have accepted a request from Julia Schiller of Love Our Libraries with a petition in relation to Save Our Super City Librarians. Could I ask Julia please to come to the table if she'd like to be accompanied by somebody? Julia, the way that we deal with petitions is generally to give you 5 minutes. We're reasonably strict on time as we are with councillors' speeches, and then there'll be the opportunity for councillors, if they have any questions, to ask questions of you. But welcome, thank you for coming along, and thank you also to the support group that was outside here today.
Thank you. I have practiced. It might be closer to 6 minutes. Kia ora, Mayor Goff and Auckland councillors. My name is Julia Schiller, and I represent a grassroots community campaign called Love Our Libraries. Our group arose in support of our excellent library system amid rumors of drastic changes to that system. I request permission to table this document, which is a selection of testimonials we gathered at libraries, plus some comments left on Action Station and in our Facebook group. Whilst visiting libraries, we were struck by the uniqueness of each branch, how it reflects and responds to its community's needs and aspirations. Many people mentioned their library's role as a community center. We also saw that our libraries are especially important to vulnerable people in our society. The Love Our Libraries Facebook group has over 450 members, and at last count, there are about 3,200 signatures on our petition, which I will send to you later today via Sandra O'Toole. You might think these numbers are low, and perhaps you can ignore them, but let's be honest, the bulk of the community still doesn't know about the changes to our libraries. With the media attention over the past few days, we've had over 2,000 signatures added just since Saturday. Council's Fit for the Future program, which was launched last year, was meant to be a, quote, program of work to evolve libraries to better meet the growing demand for digital and online services, and at the same time make sure that the services offered at each location are based on the needs of the communities they serve. Coincidentally, Fit for the Future will also save $1.8 million a year. Perhaps the reality of this program is more to do with saving money than with modernizing the library service. We have learned that Fit for the Future machinations began almost a year ago, a few months before this body was elected, and it included a hiring freeze that's been going on since then. Who instigated this program and why? Many librarians are talking to our campaign. They raise serious questions around the staff consultation process. One person described receiving frequent emails which felt like a box-ticking process with no detail about what new positions would actually look like. It also seems the library's HR department has had a lot of turnover, and they were unable to manage the process professionally. One former HR employee told me, that nowhere in the consultation were employees told that most of their current positions would be disestablished. Surely this is not how our country's largest council is operating. The ongoing job uncertainty has caused unacceptable levels of stress and loss of morale for library staff. It's a bad sign when over 10% of a workforce request voluntary redundancy. The library profession is all about sharing information, yet our librarians were instructed not to tell the public what was happening. They were even supplied with a script to follow should any member of the public get wind of the plans and make inquiries. I understand some of you tried to make inquiries and were told it was an operational matter, so you shouldn't concern yourselves. I've also been told that the public has no right to weigh in on staffing matters. However, when I spoke to the library's general manager, Merla Edmondson, on March 24th, she categorized Fit for the Future not as a staffing restructure, but as a service restructure, in which case there should have been proper public consultation. The council is changing service levels within our libraries, and the community has a right to be consulted. So far, 74 librarians have agreed to redundancy arrangements, and all of them will be gone by July 1st. When all is done, we stand to lose the immeasurable community and institutional knowledge of 15% of our library system's workforce, the equivalent of 7 libraries worth of staff. But it doesn't stop there, because as we speak, the remaining staff are playing a demeaning game of musical chairs, requiring they compete for the work that has been allowed to remain. Our communities will be further damaged by dismantling well-functioning teams of staff and yanking employees across local boards as if they were parts in a machine. Council administration has now sought to reassure the public that there will be no branches to close or hours to be scaled back, and that's great. But they also claim we'll have no reduction in level of service. How can this be when 74 staff have gone? Surely we're not saying that the libraries were previously overstaffed. This administrative approach cynically disregards the work, the knowledge, and the love our librarians provide their branches. It is impossible not to reduce service when staff are cut and juggled around. When I spoke to Ms. Edmondson, she told me the staff who agreed to redundancy, this is a quote, didn't wish to be part of the future. Here is an alternate view from a former employee. Knowing my position and extra hours were going to be axed, not knowing what the new positions would look like, where they would be, what hours, on what days, the unknown created too much anxiety in me. Also, the thought of going up against my colleagues was something that made me feel sick. Going to an interview to justify my existence without even knowing the details, couldn't stomach it. And maybe above all, the lack of respect I felt throughout the process around how everyone is being affected. Just FTEs, not people. Mayor Goff and councilors, recently we had some justice for caregivers. Today we are asking you to intervene on behalf of another largely female and underpaid workforce. A workforce employed by all of us and paid for by our tax dollars. Our city should seek to be a model employer, not to emulate the worst of a private sector that deprives people of a living wage, job security, and opportunities to upskill to meet changing needs. Our message is that libraries are not a business and should never be run as such. That there may be a business case justifying these changes will never make them the right thing to do. We trust you have the power to stop the current process, review it, restore the library budget, keep the remaining staff in their jobs, and to direct that any new changes in service and in staffing be instigated in an open, inclusive, bottom-up, and transparent way. Stand with us. Thousands of us have your back. Love our libraries. Save our librarians.
Thank you very much, Julia. Are there any councillors that would like to ask a question regarding the petition? Efeso Collins.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Julia, for your presentation. There's commenting today on TV1's Breakfast was Mr. Hay from the Library Association, and he said that there's new technologies that are coming in. Are you convinced that the new technologies coming in warrant the changes that you're talking about?
Well, I think that technology should assist people. You know, for example, the machines that you can check books out with, great, that frees up the librarians to have more time to interact with the public. As for ebooks, we're seeing a decline in their popularity. They've kind of peaked in overseas markets. I don't know about New Zealand, but apparently in Germany and the US, they're losing popularity. There have been some studies that people don't retain the information as well. So this technology, there's a lot of love still for the hard, resources and the human interaction at the libraries.
One further question.
Yes, supplementary
Mr.
question, Councillor Collins.
Thank you. In Otara and Manukau, where I come from, we have a lot of remedial programs. Is it your sense that some of those remedial programs may either be lost or there'll be a diminishing value to them, but with the possibility of the loss of these staff?
Yeah, of course we worry about that because the librarians over time establish relationships with individuals, children, people who are learning to read of all ages. Here in Auckland Central, they do a movie morning for the homeless community. So we don't really know all the details about these new positions, but surely moving people around is going to jeopardize those relationships that are really important, when you're learning skills like that.
Thank you.
Mike Lee and then Desley Simpson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. From what I've seen of libraries very recently, there seem to be more people in them more than ever. Every library I go into to look. Is there a suspicion, do you think this pretext of new technology is really just an excuse for old-fashioned neoliberal downsizing?
Yeah, it is hard to escape that conclusion, Councillor Lee. And really, $1.8 million is what we're talking about saving here, which is, I think, quite a small drop in your bucket. And yet, that will really impact every community library.
Are you aware that the council spends $3 million a year on paying a private company to buy books for the library?
I have heard that we've lost people in the acquisitions. I think it's called the acquisitions department of the library. And yeah, there is a worry that services are going to be privatized.
For $3 million a year.
Thank you. Councillor Desley Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Julia, last night you attended a meeting in the library at St Heliers that I was a speaker at. Just for the others, you'll know that the librarians were present. So what role do you think the librarians have when their key responsibility potentially is during the working, the time that the libraries are open to do their real core job? They're still involved, aren't they, after hours? So to keep the sort of the small part-time people do you think they could potentially help with some of that after-hours work when the library has to be kept open?
Quite possibly. I mean, I think there's probably some collective will to throw more resources at the library, hire more people, do some brainstorming about how else we can use that wonderful public space. And, we're in a time of increasing commercialization. Our public spaces are so precious to us. So I don't know if that answers your question, but...
I think the point I'm making is that the staff aren't just working library hours, they're actually working well in excess of that because more and more libraries are community spaces and community meeting spaces and used as a vital resource in community.
The volunteer component.
Okay, thank you very much, councillors. Julia, just the assurance that I'd want to give you is the assurance that we have received as councillors, and that is that there will be no reduction in service delivery and no library closures. In fact, you'll be aware, as I am, that in the last 2 terms of council we've totally rebuilt 6 libraries, and we're in the process of spending 20 to 30 million on a new library in Westgate. We do accept that libraries perform a vital role in our community. They are the heart of our community. We also accept that there are changing patterns in how libraries are being used. So hopefully some of the positives out of this will be new mobile services to geographically and socially isolated communities and greater response to the increasing demand for digital services. But at this point, your petition will be received. It will be forwarded to our Chief Operating Officer for consideration, and the points that you and the signatories make on that are taken seriously and taken into account. I wonder if I could call on a councillor to move the motion of
I'm
thanks.
second.
Councillor Simpson,
A second.
and seconded by Councillor Cooper. Do you want to move the...
I would definitely want to move that. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would. I'd be delighted to. Thank you.
Okay, so it's thank you very much for taking the time and with your supporters to draw to our attention the concerns that you have, that I know are genuine concerns and that I know reflect the love for libraries and the role that libraries play in our community. Thank you very much for that. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried.